Hey friends, it's Romania Black, and yeah, I couldn't wait. I watched episode 6 of A Place Further Than the Universe a couple days ago, and I'm getting ready to leave for my trip, and I was like, well, I'm gonna have to watch it for when I get back, so after last week's episode with them prepping in Australia to go to Fremantle to get on the ship to go to Antarctica, and with the whole thing with Shirase and Hinata, which was just so good. So good. That episode was amazing. I was like, yeah, I need to go ahead and watch episode 7. Yeah. I feel like it's important because I'm about to go on a trip as I'm recording this. I'll already be back from my trip by the time you watch this on Patreon and YouTube, but I was like, I feel like I want to feel some inspirational vibes. And last week had a lot of bittersweet moments to it, but then it ended on a good note. So I'm like, let's just keep the good feelings going. And I'm really interested and curious of how they're going to get on this ship and what's going to end up happening. Like, how does that go? Their stuff's already arrived. So what are we going to do about, like, I like seeing how this show goes through the process and all the little intricate details of the travel, environment and the whole like journey that you take. So I'm excited to see what this episode had in store. So I don't have any comments to talk about, but I am sure when we get to episode 8, which next week is the rule of 8, I'm gonna have comments, I'm sure, for episode 8. So that we'll definitely make up for that then. But before we start, I want to give a special shout out over to Patreon as well as to the philanthropy tier because you all support me and I really appreciate that. So I want to give a shout out to our philanthropy tier members. They donate a little bit extra each month and they not only get a shout out in all my videos, they get all the perks everybody else does, but if we have a tie in the polls, which there's, as I'm recording this, there have been some polls going on. I don't know if there were ties or not as I'm recording, but if there is a tie, they get to break it. So we've had ties on the channel and the philanthropy tier has come through and broken those ties. So just saying. But I want to give a shout out to Alex Cornejo, to Anime Annie, to Be Happy, to Damage3245, to Dana, to Danger Zone, Alexandra Q, Devorin, Destiny Marie, Ichu, Eric, Fisho, Ghostly Turnip, El Freya, Liam Poles, Lyndon, Matthew Palfinier, Murphew, Adam Perez, Nicholas, Sunspots, Shimoyama, Translucent Men, Starman AA, Bisa, and El Cuno. Thank you all so much for your support. I greatly appreciate it. All of my love. So Huckleberry has a bone. He was growling just a second ago, and now he's looking at me like, what? So if you hear him growling, that's probably what it's from. But I'm excited to see what all we're going to be getting in this episode, and I hope you all are as well. So we're not going to waste any more time. We're going to dive right into episode 7, no pun intended, of A Place Further Than the Universe, and we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Interesting. This series handles like little subtle tone shifts really well. So this episode is interesting. I definitely a good, like the last 2 episodes have been good setup episodes, but when you're going on a trip to Antarctica and you're going to be gone there for 3 months, and I'm assuming that's what the next several episodes are going to be about, then yeah, because next week is the rule of 8. The 8th episode, which we'll talk about next week. But I have a feeling that based on the end credit scene where we had the waves tossing and turning and churning and all that, I feel like next week is going to be the journey there. And this is all just speculation. I could be totally wrong. We'll see if I'm right or wrong. But I feel like episode 8 is going to be the journey there. And then you have 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. You have 5 episodes after next week. So you still have plenty of time to encapsulate Antarctica within 5 episodes. That's a lot of time there. That and over 3 months, you could definitely do a lot in that time frame. So I'm excited to see. I feel like next week's going to be on the ship and then getting there, which is going to be great. But I'm going to be curious to see like what happens when we get there. And being on a ship for, I've been on one cruise that was, 3 days. in that 3-day time span, I can tell you I am not a ship goer. I have really bad motion sickness on ships. I get seasick very easily, where I have to basically take medicine in order to just function on a ship. Otherwise, I'm just bleh the whole time. And so I not only could not imagine being on a ship for weeks at a time, but there is a sense of cabin fever, of isolation, of you're in pretty nasty weather, especially over the Atlantic. The Atlantic, as far as I know, is pretty rough, and I believe that's what they're on. So that's, not exactly ideal. I don't know if I could do it. But there is something that's kind of like Jurassic Park-esque about this escapade, if you've not seen Jurassic Park, where it's like just the idea of testing humanity and its limits, but also going to places where people haven't gone before and doing things people normally wouldn't be able to do. Like, there is a thrill seeker adrenaline rush with it, but with Antarctica, there's also this weird combination of the adrenaline rush and this serenity that comes with going to this place that's untouched, that no one's, of all the places on Earth that humans have pillaged and completely desolated, it's like Antarctica's like untouched ground, right? The treasure chest of the world. So they start out this thing talking about bringing Antarctica closer to the average person. That's the part that gave me like Jurassic Park vibes of like, soon anyone will be able to go to the Antarctic and do that, which they have cruises now. You can go to the Antarctic. I don't know if I'd want to. It also has a very Mount Everest vibe to it. I kept getting Mount Everest vibes the whole time watching this episode, being like, yes. And I've watched several videos about Mount Everest. Caitlin Dowdery, who is the YouTube persona Ask a Mortician on YouTube. She's great. I love her videos. She does a really good one about Everest and how terrifying it is. Everest is terrifying. I would never climb Mount Everest. You are climbing over human bodies that have died and are landmarkers because they can't safely exhume the bodies. It's just wild. If you go watch those videos, they're crazy. But it's just people being like, they want to test the limits of humanity and what can I do? And going to the highest peak in the world is a way for them to do that. But it's so dangerous. But then there's the question of, why do you do it? And we come back to it here. But yeah, even though they're like, it's closer bringing it to the average person, I doubt that just anybody is going to get on a boat and go to Antarctica, right? And so now it's at civilian ownership. There'll be more chances for things like this. I do like the idea that they are kind of promoting this sort of like I don't want to say anti-government, but it is sort of like bringing power back into the people's hands and bringing like research back into the people's hands, where it's not solely limited to a certain number of individuals get to decide who goes where and who does what. I like the concept behind that. And Toto is a great character. She's so serious, but I love her. Toto and Kane are, okay. Toto and Kane are the two there. So when this part of the reaction was playing, I was in the moment trying to figure out a lot of things. And she looks up the first time and sees Shirase's mom with Kane making the faces. And when she looks back the second time, it's just Kane. Okay. I kept getting throughout this until I really got to sit down and pay attention in the reaction and realize that it was Shirase's mom and all the flashbacks. The woman that was with Kane at the beginning that was not Toto, she kind of has the shorter hair. I kept confusing Shirase's mom with her, and I know they look nothing alike. I am fully aware of that, but my mind kept wanting to say, oh, it's those two women that we saw in episode 2. It is not. It is Kane and Toto, and then Shirase's mom is their bestie that they've lost out in the middle of the Antarctic, which they preview that just enough to make you curious. They preview that just enough to make you ask questions like, what exactly happened? What went wrong? Because it seems like that kind of losing her led to a lot of their sponsors pulling out, led to it having a bad reputation, because obviously a person died on the expedition, which is a major thing. So it led to all this backlash. And obviously it was more than just backlash for the expedition. It was their friend who died. So they have all of this. There's such a layer of somber acknowledgement under the surface this entire episode. And having Shirase on board is such like, there was such a somber, serene respectful, reverent tone whenever she was introduced, because they're like, yeah, you're here. We were all present when your mom died. We're all we bear in that responsibility, and you're here despite that. So it just, it got me. It got me hard. But in the moment, it took me a while to realize that this was just a flashback. She's like, we want to keep sending expeditions and doing observations. And then she kind of giggles and laughs about it and says, we want everyone to learn about the wonders of Antarctica. And I love that you see it through that lens. And then when she looks back as the stuff's getting, okay. Oh, okay. So before, the original press release wasn't even, that was all a flashback, wasn't it? That was all a flashback at the beginning. That's why it had that like glossy Drag Race season 1 veneer over the lens. So that was all a flashback of them with the press crew, her laughing. She seemed like in a lot better spirits during that press release. And I was wondering if she was just putting on a persona of like, oh, I'm interacting with the public, I need to be a little bit more cheerful and chipper. But no, that seems like it was comparing then versus now. You had the press conference back then with the two friends that were like, come on. And now there's not a press release. Instead, there's all this doubt. There's nobody there asking her questions. Instead, she looks up and there's Connie again, and it's a totally different vibe. And Connie still makes the same face. That's really impressive. That's really cool. So yeah. So I love that juxtaposition of when everything was new and exciting, and her and Kane and Shirase's mom, Tanako, were all going on the trip, and there was all this press about it. And then this time, because of the kind of shady sort of like, there's not trust in the expedition like there was the first time around, they're not getting the press release. Instead, people are questioning whether it's even going to happen with their supplies and everything. And there's all this doubt surrounding it, and it has a whole different vibe. That's really cool. Okay, I get that now. During the reaction, I was trying to piece it together in the moment, but... So, this episode's called The Ship That Sees the Universe, which is obviously, this is Yuzu's gift that she's put on the page there with all them duty-free activities. And it says, hashtag catchy, hashtag witty, hashtag sensational. Of all them with their helmets, and they got the jackets and everything. Super cute. Yeah, I love that. And so they're running a test, getting everything together. Poor Shirase. Shirase, she seems very different than her mom, which I like. There are bits and pieces of her mom that we see, like her mom has this determinism and this stubbornness, which they've commented about Shirase before. And she seems similar to her mom in that regard. But she also is a lot more shy. She's a lot more reserved. She seems maybe more emotional. Which is interesting. Of course, something to keep in mind is that the images we see of her mom are from just 3 years ago. Just 3 years ago. So her mom was still a mature adult who was sure of herself, presumably, when we see those flashbacks, versus Shirase, who is a blossoming teenager. So even though they don't seem, completely similar, we don't know Tanako when she was a teenager. We don't know that about her, although she could have been just as enthusiastic and outgoing as she is in the flashbacks from 3 years ago. We don't know. I like that Shirase is so confident, but when it comes to doing stuff in front of a live audience, she lets that public speaking fear kind of show through. Bless her heart not being able to jump. She can't help it. I hear ya. So the ship they're taking to Antarctica. So we're going to head inside this ship. So everybody's getting off the bus, getting all, like we see everybody getting looking at their passports, getting everything set up, making sure everybody's all cleared to go. I like that there's this script for her, the high school girl Yuzuki Shiraishi challenge for Antarctic. Poor Shirase, she's trying so hard. She just is someone that has stage fright in front of the camera. Bless her. I'm going to be making catchy, witty, and sensational reports. I'm curious why Kamari doesn't do it, because Kamari seems a little bit more enthusiastic and energetic than Shirase, but I appreciate the fact that Shirase is developing her public speaking skills during this trip. And it's a really nice narrative callback. So when she has trouble speaking at the beginning of this episode and has a lot of stage fright, but then when it comes to the expedition crew at the very end, she gathers up her courage and she says the big pep talk cheer for them. That's a nice callback. That's a nice book-ending moment. And this series is really good about book-ending moments. So I can't get onto them for that. But yeah, she's like, well, I wrote you a script from Japan. They're like, congratulations on your long journey. Kane is like the perfect press person. Kane, it makes sense why Kane is the one everybody goes to on the ship, because she has such a cheerful personality and she's very gung-ho, and she's like, you do this, we do that, this, that, this. Like, she has it all together. Toto is much more serene and like has like an overarching CEO kind of mentality around her. Like, here's the overall picture. And Kane is more like the managerial, like, I can put people to work and this is what we need to do. And it seems like it makes a good team. So I love all of the getting settled in. They have the phone. Like, I love how realistic this is, showing like, okay, you've got this room. Here's your lockers. Here's the packages. And we see the one girl who gets drunk. We see her right from the beginning. I like the idea we're meeting slowly all of the characters on the ship, because I feel like since it's a small ship and since there's a tight crew, we're going to get to know them all a little bit better, which is fun. So yeah, they have 4 bunk beds, which is great, which is awesome. She's like, isn't it fun? It's like, and I love that. I love Yuzuki is literally like, immediately there's going to be fights here. Maybe not. Shirase and Hinata seem like they made up, and you all are in 4 different bunks, so Kamari can't smack you in the head in the middle of the night. So that seems like it'll be a boon. I wouldn't count that out. They have desks and lockers to figure out who will go where. I like that they're like, we're going to carry them to the station once we arrive, so don't unbox everything. And then the lockers have like opening and closing drawers. I like that. And then don't step, also there's a rule, don't step on the silver part here. I wonder if stepping on the silver part is bad luck. So that's why you do that. So silver part of ship door. Is it bad luck? Okay, oh. Says, I'll find something here. Superstition. I want to see if there was any superstitions about the silver part of the door. I guess it says there's feng shui, so you don't want bad feng shui, but I can't really find anything that points to it. Okay. I don't know why she said not to do it, but I guess maybe we'll find out, because I have a feeling that she pointed that out so that the series will have it happen later on. So we'll just have to wait and see. But I really like the fact that she says, you guys are all adults on this ship. You're going to have to figure it out for yourself. And that is, this entire like journey of them traveling across the boat and everything, it reminds me of when we go to our national tournament for the team I coach, because we're there for like 8 days, and it's kind of like a ship journey. You're there for 8 days in this hotel, which is kind of like being stuck on a ship. And the coaches, we always tell the students, we're like, okay, y'all are young adults, so we're going to be busy doing things. We have meetings, we have rounds that we're going to be judging and being at. We can't be with you all 24/7. So once we get to the hotel, it's like, you all are young adults, be an adult in the world, and just don't get crazy and just be self-sufficient. And it's a good lesson, I think, that when you're by yourself, like on a trip, to learn how to adult and kind of do things, which is nice for these guys, because they get to kind of, I like that Kimari's first suggestion at, we have to do this ourselves, is to try to find in the manual, like, what to do next. And then you have Shirase with the plushie that she's like getting with it, and Hinata has all the books. I love that Yuzuki like straps down the laptop. I had wondered about that in the reaction. I'm like, what are they going to do with all their equipment? But there are straps to keep it from tossing and turning on the boat, which is nice. I like that. So yeah, and then they put like a little sign on their door to help differentiate that it's their door. That's really smart. But they're like, which way do we go? And like, wasn't there a map in the brochure? So I like this. I think that it's really fun when you see characters like traveling around the ship and getting their bearings and figuring out where they are. We find out that Yuzuki has a fear of heights. That's probably going to come back later on, especially on this expedition. But Yuzuki has a fear of heights. I feel like they're setting that up maybe for something later on. I like how she's just like, why does this make you happy that I have that I have a struggle, that I have a flaw? She reminds me a lot. My dad has a really bad fear of heights, so he would be in the middle of the ship being like, nope. So then she's like, let's go this way. And so they're looking at the snowcat and checking it out and storing it there, which is fun. But they're doing the little coverage of the report and everything. And like, it's so old. Is it really going to move? They said it would be fine. I have a feeling we don't have enough people down below either. So there's a little bit of concern on the ship that the snowcat's too old, that it's going to have malfunctions, that they don't have enough people on the ship to man the expedition. Like, there's all these little subtle fears that are kind of mounting under the surface that Yuzuki has been, you know, kind of noticing as the trip is getting ready. And then it shows like civilian Antarctic expedition members, and it shows everybody like signing the poster. But if you notice on the poster, which granted, not everybody is signed yet, but if you notice, there's lots of blank space. Like, not everybody has signed, and there's a lot of blank space there where, you know, there could be more people sign it. And maybe they are, right? And they say no rest for the wicked. I like that because, you know, they're all going on this trip to kind of satisfy an agenda with themselves, or for some I don't want to call it selfish, but they are doing it for their own reasons. So if you wanted to call it wicked, I guess you could. But yeah, so I like to do a little camera report. I'm excited to see where this goes. And Yuzuki does, of course, her report as any influencer would. She has a very professional tone. I like Toto there. Okay, she says it's the first civilian expedition in 3 years. I love that part. I was trying to figure out what Shirase had on her face because I had missed it. I was looking at Toto during this part, but the paper they stuck on her just says worthless. Which I'm guessing Hinata stuck on her because Kamari wouldn't have been that mean. But yeah, Toto's entire personality is different from losing her mom. And she looks over at Shirase the entire time that she's talking to Yuzuki and doing the interview. So, I mean, I am sure, I have no doubt in my mind that there is some guilt associated with her mom's death, and we're going to find out more about it as we go. I'm sure that there will be, right? So the station's been unmanned since the winter team pulled out. So restoring it to normal functionality is our primary motivation. Yeah. So she's like, there hasn't been anybody there for a while, so we got to get everything back up and running. Which is interesting. And they're like, I think the ship might be a little too big this time. Just that note there being like, meaning we don't have as big of a crew as we did in the past. So I was trying to figure out what he meant by that, but he's like, we may have too much room. So yeah, it's the same room that Takako used. They literally let her have that room for a reason. They wanted her to be able to be in there where her mom was. And then the glowing paint on the ceiling of it. I'm assuming that those women, that Toto and Kana and Kane, they probably stayed in that same room with her. And that's why they let them have the room. I'm going to guess. I'm going to say that maybe they did. But anyway, then there's this one woman. She's the other one. She's the one that I thought was in the beginning. So Yumiko. Yumiko was the one in episode 2 that I thought was Shirase's mom in the flashback at the beginning of the episode. I got them confused for a hot second. But Yumiko was the one that was Kane, and she's helping to haul all of the things in. So I like the idea that when you're out, you turn your car to red. So I like the idea that that's how they keep track of who's on the ship and who's not on the ship, because it's, you know, helpful to make sure they don't leave anybody behind. So then they go and get eggs, milk, yogurt. Are those provisions for the boat trip? I find it a little weird that they're going shopping now. I had this image of them dropping this mini-ton crate of provisions onto the ship. And they're like, are you with an expedition? And so they talk about how young the girls are. And they're like, this isn't that much, actually. The new ship that came by last week had a whole container full. So there's not a lot of provisions, which means there's not a lot of people on the ship. I don't know if maybe they're just being safe and being cautious with buying so much, thinking that they might not use it all, which does raise some concerns. So I'm going to be curious to see like what we do with all the food and stuff as we go. Not enough funds, not enough people. The plan itself is unworkable. There's a new station and expedition ship anyway, so doubling up is meaningless. So they talked about how I'm guessing there might be another ship from Japan, like a government ship that's already going there. So the people are like, why go on this civilian run expedition anyway? I'm not sure about that. I guess we'll find out, but I like Yuzuki's decision to not stay on social media because sometimes, especially when people are being negative, the best thing to do is just get away from that. And, you know, not saying that we're always great with that advice, but I think it is good advice nonetheless. So they end up asking Yumiko, you know, is this actually going to be a situation? Because it doesn't seem like there's enough people. And that's when they send them to Kane, because Kane is our PR person. She can gloss over anything, including difficult news for people to hear. She's like, well, Antarctica's not going anywhere. And they're like, are we actually going? And she's like, I know that there's a lot of rumors, but yes, we are going. Since we're civilians, we had to make a lot of cuts. But we're going. There's no way we're not going. I like that. I like that she acknowledges the realistic nature of, yeah, when we went before, we probably had more people and more supplies because we were funded different, but we've spent 3 years working to get the crew and getting everybody set back up. So yeah, we're going to go. We're doing this. I'm curious to know, we're going to go through like what the end goal of going on this trip is by the end of this, which they keep a lot of it in mystery. We've made the necessary preparations. The first civilian Antarctic expedition. We've taken unprecedented precautions with safety as well. Right, because Shirase's mom died last time. They would need to. I like that we get the 2 girls there. We have the 2 women there. Gin is one of them. Gin has the glasses, and she's one of the ones that knows Shirase's mom as well. Then we have Toto setting up her lounge there with the flowers and the TV and the map of Antarctica as well. Okay, so we see, all right, this picture of them. How that young man, what's his face? Is it Tobio or whatever his name is? We'll get his name by the end of this. How they got him and the other guy like down to their skivvies out in the snow. How'd they not freeze to death? But yeah, there's Yumiko, there's Gin, and the other girl that is either narcoleptic or always drunk in there. And there's Kane, and there's Toto, and then Tanako. Yep, and they're all there at Siowa Station. Interesting. Okay. All right, so that's the picture. I'm curious to know more about them. They're determined to go. Antarctica is an unforgiving place where blizzards can blow in, and the air is so dry your lips chap and bleed, and the sunlight is harsh. If you forget sunblock, you could really get burned. But we've been preparing little by little for 3 years' time. But why are we going? If I had to put it into words, this time it's to see the sky. Okay, so they talked about an observatory, which we'll get into in a little bit here. But yeah, the idea of going to see the sky. Okay. So meanwhile, Yuzuki is convinced that they're hiding something. They're not telling them something, and they need to find out what it is. I love them in their like ninja gear, going into stealth mode. I like that Hinata doesn't even put it over her head because she's like, "What's the point?" And I love the gag of them like, which way do we go? And they all pick a different way. That part was super cute. I like Shirase trying to sneak around, and then Hinata's in the back being like, let's be real. We have the jackets on for the expedition. They're going to know who we are. Okay, so this one girl, she was in the picture too. She's the one who's on the phone. She was in the background in the picture. And they're like, don't be like that. You're the one who told me to go, Yukun. She's like, why? And then she says that I do want to go home. You know I want to see you, Yukun. I don't even know if this expedition is going to work out. She's like, I'm telling you I love you. I've told you I love you so many times. So Nobu, her name is Nobu. And then they're like, Nobu, we're going out for a drink. Okay, so Nobu's on the phone with you, who I'm assuming is her boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever, and is trying to say that she has doubts about the trip. Meanwhile, these 3 who were on the expedition before are going out for a drink. Okay. She's like, why does it have to be like that? Okay. Is the fact that I love you not enough? Oh my God. Meanwhile, so we get to the dinner with the three that had been on the trip before having oysters. Only 2 days left for short sleeves. Yeah, until they have to wear it for the... She's like, I'll have a Kahlua. He's like, I wonder if they have cocktails. He's like, quit taking... Basically, he's like, quit taking shots. You're drunk, girl. He's like, I was thinking... I think the project itself might not be possible. And I like that Geen is like, well, that's just your opinion, right? The actual details haven't even been decided yet. There's not really anything we can say yet. So once they get to Antarctica, they're doing something. And these three don't exactly, they're not in the know the whole way, but something's going down. Like, that's our Yume-chan. Okay. He's like, you're already sloshed. I like that she says, are you going to carry her back? And he says, no. All of us crammed in together. I'd never hear the end of it. So, yeah, I feel like he has a crush on her, and he doesn't want to say anything because he doesn't want the guys on the ship giving him a hard time since they're all going to be together. Although she might be with Geen, so I don't know. So let's get back to the plan. Concretely speaking, what we're doing right now isn't part of the official plan. So, in other words, that's an extremely distant goal. But the commander and Kane-san are obsessed with it, right? That's incorrect. The other members are obsessed with it too. Does that make... Okay, so clearly whatever they have told the press or whatever the official plan is with the expedition, there's a secondary plan underneath it that everybody's kind of on board with, but he's questioning, being like, is this really going to be something feasible? He's like, a real man wouldn't grumble about everything. And he's like, I'm not grumbling. And that's when she sees them. She's like, oh, look, high school girls in masks. Ah! But then they look. Okay. So, like, we have to find out from Kane what's going on. Which is cute how Hinata scares them with Kamari. I love that. She's like, they could force us to go along with it, whatever they're planning. But thinking won't get us anywhere. We'll have to talk to Kane-san tomorrow. And that's when they find the glow-in-the-dark paint, which is super cute. I love that. I love the idea that Shirase is getting to kind of see more of what her mom saw in this moment to kind of relate to her and understand where she's coming from. It's weird to think this was only 3 years ago that she lost her mom, because it feels like the way the show sets it up, it feels like it was years and years and years ago, whereas Shirase would have just been like going into middle school. To see the sky. Meanwhile, she thinks back about the book that talks about a place more distant than the universe, not a prison trapped in ice, but still unopened and yet with possibilities. Earth's greatest treasure chest. So she's back looking at the telescope that Kane and Toto were at originally in the end credits for last week's episode. And she says, I think we all got a little too worked up to do it, if you want to look into there. Okay, so then it flashes back. I guess they were going to look into the telescope and they just couldn't do it. And so it flashes back saying after the new ship is finished, they'll be deployed to the new station, and the current ship and Saiwa station will be transferred to civilian ownership. So that was the plan. They were going to go there, prove that they could do it, get all that done, and then they were going to transfer everything to civilian ownership. We could be the first civilian team. I love it. I love how Shirase's mom is just as passionate as she is. It kind of feels like Kamari a little bit, which is funny because Shirase was kind of immediately drawn to Kamari, so that connection is sort of there. The ship and the station were hand-me-downs. Okay. But we were so excited. There were no civilian stations anywhere in the world. So it came up with all kinds of plans and gathered all kind of researchers. Okay, so it showed them funding the trip, getting all of that, getting all the sponsors, everything. Toto and Kane went and did all. I like that you had Shirase's mom, Tanako, doing the research behind the scenes, and then you had Toto and Kane like enthusiastically going and getting all the partnerships and all that. We all wanted to make it a success. And so she says, because we knew that this journey, this road that we've paved, would continue on into the future. And that's why. Okay, so an astronomical observatory. The plan's been out there for a while. And they were building one at the news station too. Okay. So, all right. So they wanted to do an observatory as well to see the sky. That ties to that. We might not be able to rival their scale and amenities, but I think being able to do the same research as the news station is the most important thing we can do as civilians in the future. Oh man. And just seeing how excited Tanako was, like she was so enthusiastic, she was so on board, she was so having like all of this just passion exuding out of her, getting everybody on board with having the observation station as well. And then seeing the flag, yeah. And it's good publicity too, right? Yes. And they're all laughing and having the best time, and then it's like just immediately cuts to the worst with like the snow and the wind and the blizzard. So yeah, the snowcat, she was probably hoping to find something worthwhile somewhere. Now it cuts to them like trying to call out to her on that, even though she knew that feeling could be very dangerous. So when Toto tells Kamari she would be suited for Antarctica, and Kamari seems like she's very similar to Tanako, that definitely seems like it could be foreshadowing for something, but I want to know what exactly happened to Tanako, and I feel like we're getting closer and closer to finding out, but it's going to be a little bit. Because there's Toto like calling out for her. Takako, not Tanako. But yeah, when we came home, we found a harsh reality waiting for us. Yeah, so we talked about that too, like a few episodes ago, when they're like, the world keeps spinning even while we're away. But, in Australia, Kamari and all them had this like really bright, optimistic view of, yeah, when we get back, we'll get to tell everybody about our journeys and it'll be so great and all of this. And Toto kind of points out that they thought the same, but when they came back and Takako had died, it just was a completely different situation. The harsh reality was by losing her, all of the negative press, the damage to their image, it caused the sponsors to withdraw. The next expedition was indefinitely postponed, and the winter mission was withdrawn. And we hadn't changed at all. 3 years ago, in the place we discovered with Takako, we would someday look at the stars again. Okay. And then there's that picture next there. It didn't matter if it took 10 or 20 years. And it wasn't just us. Most of the members who were with us 3 years ago are here again now. So yeah, so we have the one guy, we have all of them. It says most of them, right? Yep, and our budget has been mostly stripped away and will gain almost no compensation. I like the one guy who was in the loincloth in the snow. He's there. We just see his back as he's like training. And there are some of us who won't have anything waiting for us when we return. Girl, like Nobu, quit getting scared about your boyfriend dumping you or your girlfriend dumping you. It's okay. And yet we all came here. I like the one girl who's just asleep all the time. She's just like half drunk, half asleep all the time next to Geen. Okay. That's the kind of ship this is. I love it that they all, even after everything they went through, they all wanted to come back another time to try it again, to try to reclaim what was lost. I love that. Okay. And then all the girls are watching Toto explain this to Shirase. And then Geen, meanwhile, has the moment with Takako in the flashback. Or no, that's not. Oh, that's not Geen. That's, oh my gosh, this episode has thrown me off. That's Toto, but with short hair. Oh my gosh. So no, it is, God, it's Toto, but she has short hair there. Uh-huh. And she went to high school with Takako. Wow, okay. And then Kane must have came along later. Interesting. I thought what I was going to say in this, man, Toto with short hair was throwing me off. What I was going to say in the reaction was that Toto reminds me a lot of Shirase herself. Like both of them seem to have similar personalities, that they're more similar than they seem. And meanwhile, Takako and Kamari seem to have similar personalities in a way as well. But at the same time, in terms of the passion of going to Antarctica, there is the same type of passion that both Takako and Shirase have, right? There we go. It's been a while. All right, so Kane, of course, she's the hostess with the mostest. She's like, it's been 3 years since our last voyage. Some of you have lost hair. Some of you have gotten divorced. Some of you have lost your jobs. I like that Yumiko's like, nobody got married. I like she also stabs the one guy with the chopstick that was trying to take her things. She's like, we'll just introduce ourselves one by one. But it's the passengers we've all been waiting to see. I like she tells every man, of course it's every guy on board, like their high school girls, leave them alone. It's meant to be funny, but at the same time I'm like, leave them alone. They're high school girls. Yeah, and what they say, especially Toshio. Toshio, you hear me? I like that she gives Toshio a hard time when he's like the least likely to do anything, I'm sure. Toshio seems like the most innocent lamb. He seems like he's perfectly fine, right? She's like, all of our members who made that promise 3 years ago have returned. So, and with our new members, all of us here. So I like that she says all the members who made the promise returned. So that means not everybody returned, just the ones that made the promise to. They kept their word. And then she says, these new members were going to the station. Okay. I love it. I like how somber and quiet it gets. Like everybody's just acknowledging like what's ahead of them. Yeah, and when she looks up, I like she looks up at all of them and they're all kind of looking away. Like, okay, we're doing this. No matter what had happened in the past, we're going to make it work this time. All right. They all introduce each other. I love Kamari's little speech that she gives. Yuzuki just basically says, I'm a YouTuber. And I'm doing this for work. We're funding y'all. And then I like Hinata's like, I am go with the flow and here for the adrenaline rush. So thank you. And then I love it comes full circle with Shirase. Where what I like about it is that everyone is very understanding of her situation. Like, we know your mom died on this trip. So there's a reverence there, but I love that I love that from last episode to now, they've developed this bond, and she's the one that like kind of pushes her to be like, come on, say something, right? And again, they do a really good job of the entire episode. They've been building up Hinata to be like, okay, say something, speak your mind. You got a gift of gab, use it. And then she finally does here, where she gives him the pep talk. I boarded the ship to do catchy, witty, sensational reporting, to open the treasure chest of Antarctica that my mother wrote about with my own hands. She's like, let's go to Antarctica together. And that spirit that she has when she says that, it seems so much like her mom. I love it. It's so cute. I love it so much. And her little blush, it's sweet. So yeah, and then we get the final raging sea that seems terrifying. Coming up, so yeah. All right. I really like how this story is slowly cracking open to reveal what's inside. Like slowly cracking open to reveal the hidden like secrets about the mom, about the crew. I like that we've met these new crew members. Toshio seems wonderful. Gin seems wonderful. Drunk narcoleptic woman seems wonderful. I was all over the place with the flashbacks. And the thing I do appreciate about this show is that they treat their audience as intelligent enough to figure it out when they go back and rewatch it if you missed it the first time. Because I had missed it the first time. Like the opening flashback and then realizing it was Toto with short hair and not Gin. But when you go back and see it, it's like, oh, that's cool. They don't have to spell it out for us. They let the show speak for itself, which is top notch. So, yay. Hopefully, sorry I got some of those parts confused. I was like, get on your game, girl. But these last 2 episodes, as I'm about to travel, have made me really inspired. And so I'll be excited when I get back to get to episode 8. Rule of 8, y'all. And see where that takes us. But that's so awesome. I love it. So in the meantime, I'm very curious to hear your thoughts down below. I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'm back very soon. We're at the halfway point, right? As we're setting sail halfway through the series, seems appropriate. I'll be back next week with another episode of A Place Further Than the Universe. Bye.